Hi, BJ. It is good to see you, my friend. Thanks so much for taking some time.
Yes, sir.
So,
Glad to be
BJ,
here.
setting the stage here, you were part of a program called Day One PD Superheroes, and this was a second cohort, second run of the program. Let me ask you just right off the bat, what attracted you? Why did you want to sign up to it?
Well, actually, I had no preconceived notions about what it was going to be or anything. I was actually kind of clueless. I read on LinkedIn that you were doing a study, and I just clicked on the link. And because there's very few things I can participate in here in Baton Rouge in that regard, I just filled out the form and said, okay, you know.
So that's interesting. So did the telehealth aspect, did that add to your ability or desire to say yes because you could connect?
Right, because a lot of the programs here, like the LSU, they do a lot of dietary type things, and there aren't very many, well, hardly any Parkinson's related studies that I can do in person here. So I try to at least keep one participation event going on that I can help with research. And, I do the things with Michael J. Fox, the quarterly studies and things like that. So it's about the only thing I can do from here. And it was another opportunity. So, um,
Well, it's worth mentioning your background, I think, a little bit. Why don't you tell me a little bit about what you do within the Parkinson's community, and when you were diagnosed, and then you're already a pretty strong advocate. You're out and about, so.
right. So I was diagnosed 9 years ago at the age of 44. And after a 4-month pity party, I got tired of sitting at home. I had made it through the holidays, and um, the lull after the holidays kind of leaves everything. You're looking for something to do. So I started looking online, and I found a support group in New Orleans. And she asked me if I was going to some certain event, and I had no idea what it was. So I said, what event? And she said, well, it's a conference. I can get you in. I'm like, okay. Well, little did I know it was in Washington, D.C. And within 2 weeks, I was driving up in my car. I had no idea what it was again. You could tell I'm not really scared of it, of, of committing to things. But so I went up there just to start being a part of something, and it turned out to be one of the best decisions. Um, it was mainly talking to representatives and senators about what we need as a community, and from there it just built into where I am today. I am on the People with Parkinson's Advisory Council for Parkinson's Foundation, and I've completed the first year of 3 on that council, and I help the Gulf Coast director in a lot of events, as far as educational events, tabling events, and things of that nature. And I saw I saw your post on LinkedIn, and from what I could see, it was something different. And I said, why not? So
Yeah.
I dove in.
Well, and I want to address that why not, because yeah, you dove in, and like you said, you're not scared. And then you go to the first class and really start finding out. And what happens? What are you feeling at that moment?
Well, I really had no preconceived notions, which is a good thing. Um, I didn't know really at the time how many sessions it would be, and things of that nature. But I had never, as many things as I had been a part of uh, throughout high school and my life, I'd never really been part of an improv type thing. And it really fits my personality. And I'm surprised I never did it, but um, I did musical instruments and all sorts of other things, but this was really the first time I was able to interact in this manner, and I found it very intriguing. And I found that even though I have an open personality, and I call myself a color analyst, whereas I like to sit next to the person that's doing the presentation and throw in the remarks and and make it fun. And but it's different when you're doing an exercise and it's your turn, and you have to do it at that moment or dive in. And so I found myself kind of freezing up at times, trying to think of things, and you were teaching us not to do that along the way. So it was, even though it fit my personality and I thought I wouldn't have an issue with it, I still did. And I still learned how to just give in to the moment. So it was, I did learn a good bit during it, and not to dwell on exactly what you're going to say and what's on your mind, and things of that nature.
Yeah, I hear yes and through everything you're saying, right? And that extemporaneous in the moment, yes and not, like you said, holding and gripping. But one thing you may have heard me say is that, if Parkinson's is about rigidity, improv is about fluidity.
Right.
And it seems to, based on your comments there, have added something. And just for clarity for those watching, the Day One PD Superheroes program incorporates improv. It's not the only element, but it is kind of an upfront. It's the top of every class, and it bleeds through everything we do. So it's interesting. What do you hear from people when you tell them about improv? What is their take on it, and what it has to do with Parkinson's?
Well, when I present it, I ask them if they're having any issues with social interaction, and if they're having trouble following a conversation or adding it, what their confidence level is. And I say, well, I did this program, and it incorporates improv, and it really helped with that spontaneity and building confidence in being involved in a conversation. And so I start the conversation that way.
Yeah. And, as you may have heard me say, a lot of people, you already have an outgoing personality to begin with. People who are less so, and then maybe feel further stigmatized or whatever they get from their Parkinson's, might see this as a daunting task, to even allow themselves to step into the room, as it were. Do you ever, when you represent your experience, say anything to people who might go, that sounds great, but I could never?
Well, I tell them, first off, I tell them if they ever want to go, I'll be there with them. And so they'll have a familiar face there. And so I wouldn't really tell anyone to show up without them having a familiar face. And so that would open the door to them being more willing to do it. And, like you said about my personality, I said, you like having conversations with me in the real life, right? Well, this is just doing it times 12, we just have a lot of fun, And so I try to put people at ease and say, it's not like you're on a stage, it's just you're interacting with people. I try to minimize the pressure of it,
Right.
So
So we, like I said, lead with that improv, and then we get into this thing called the hero's journey. What did you feel about the hero's journey?
I had, I've read so many things, and I read all the time, but I never really read about how stories are constructed. And now I'm totally interested in it. I'm one of those people, when I watch a movie for what it is. I don't try to delve into it too much. I just let the director take me where they want to go, what the scenery they want, and I just enjoy it for what it is. Same thing with a book. I don't, sometimes I'll guess the ending, and sometimes, but most times I just like to take it page by page by page and let it reveal itself. So I don't really get into the construct of the story. And it was the first time I ever heard of the hero's journey.
Yeah.
And once I saw it, I'm like, why have I not seen this before? It was never presented in any class I was in, or so once I got into it and saw the construction and the direction, and then because we use Star Wars as an example, I remember standing in line in 1977 at Broadmoor Theater, halfway around the building, and seeing it 6 times in a row. So of course I'm a fan. And So it really resonated, and it was something I could latch onto and really understand
Hmm.
how the journey goes.
Right.
And then so when you started breaking it down into, okay, this is Luke and his situation, now let's look at us. And I'm like, I never really considered what I was doing as part of any journey. I knew I was doing things,
Hmm.
but I didn't realize I was going through phases as I was going. And as you were revealing each week, I'm like, well, yeah, I did that. And oh, yeah, well, that's, even if it hadn't happened, it's coming up. And so I realized I was on a journey and didn't even know it. So,
Yeah.
and when it came to doing the writing assignments, uh, it was a little bit, I can write pretty easily and get but my process is I read what's required and then I'll just let it marinate.
Yeah.
And for about 4 days, and then I just put it out on paper. And so during that process, I really found out that and it revealed a good bit of things that I didn't even realize I was going through. So it was really cool and self-discovery on a level that I hadn't experienced in a long time.
I love that idea that, you discovered an ongoing story of which you were the central figure. And then what then, with that knowledge, does that allow you to do if you find yourself on this journey? What can you do with that?
Well, I saw myself as not just um, I just like doing things and being around people and interacting and helping and lifting and um, you know, all that stuff. But when you're doing all that stuff, you don't really stop to think, okay, where was I? Where am I today? Where am I going? Um, really, since my diagnosis, I've really just been in the moment a lot. So I hadn't really had that time to reflect.
Hmm.
So,
I think that's fairly common, if you don't mind just jumping into that. And it's part of the reason why I developed the program is exactly, what you say, that there's a departure point, the call to adventure from the diagnosis, and it changes, how your life goes and, what you will or you won't do to it. And then, from a storytelling standpoint, there's being an active or a passive participant, right?
right,
And so, I mean, that's the intention anyway, is to say, from a writing standpoint, active characters are way more interesting. We like to see people doing stuff. We don't want to see the world happening to them. We want to see them putting their stamp on. It doesn't mean they always get what they want. There's always going to be stuff, but they're trying. They're going for it. Does this awareness help you be a more active participant in your story?
absolutely. It was when we talk about our ordinary world
Yeah.
and how we used to be, and a lot of what I wrote was life happening to me because my focus was really on very few things. It was, earning a paycheck, bringing home the bacon, and when we got a chance, go have a vacation or something like that. And so I wouldn't say I was stuck in a rut, but I had gotten to a point to where it was very repetitive, and time was going by, and I wasn't really doing anything new. And then Parkinson's happens, and I enter in the mourning period of okay, my old life has gone away. What am I going to do? And so I had heard of the mourning period, the stages of grief and all that. Um, so I knew, I was aware of, I'm lamenting what I could no longer do, and uh, the unsurety of the future and all that. But I found that once I got through that period and got to some level of acceptance, that it was like, okay, I'm not just going to sit at home anymore. I'm going to at least have fun or do something. And, when you enter into a community and you're a new face and you get involved and introduced to a lot of people, you get invited, and next thing you know, you're taking a leadership position and all this. And so it kind of was happening to me, but I was a willing participant
You were
instead
saying
of,
yes and to it.
right. I was a willing participant, and it wasn't something that I was just day after day. I was bargaining this part of my life to get a paycheck and,
Hmm.
whatever. Now it's like, okay, yes, I will give myself to this and either receive this or give someone else a benefit. And so that's what I've been doing for 9 years.
Now, you start this program and, it's got some things you like. You like the construct, you like Star Wars, you see the story elements. Then you meet the mentors who have completed the first round. What was your reaction to meeting this first round of people who'd already been through this program and recognize, okay, I'm part of a community, perhaps?
At that moment, I was still kind of clueless as to what we were doing. And I know that's why you bring the mentors in to kind of shed light. And I found that they were very open and engaging and conversational. And you could just tell that they had done something and they want you to go through it and receive the benefit they had. That's the feeling that I got. And so even though I had no idea what was coming, I could see it on their face that this is going to be good for me, And so I felt, and sometimes when you're in that situation, you kind of tell yourself, well, I don't need to understand what's going on because I can tell it's a good thing. I'm looking at these people. And so I didn't get bogged down in the details. I just said, okay, let's go, Yeah. So it was really their attitude and mood and interaction that kind of helped me buy in.
Just fast forwarding real quick, then, now having completed the program, can you see yourself wanting to be a mentor in this regard with a next round?
I'm already waiting for the opportunity to be one. So yes, absolutely. You know, I hate to say because I've done so many things in my life. I've read so many things and all these other things. And then when you find something that adds so much more detail or I'm trying to think of the word, but it adds so much reflection to what you're already doing.
Mhm.
It's kind of like I've been missing out on a viewpoint my whole life. And then it's like, yeah, I've looked at things and analyzed things and all this, but now I have this new way of looking at things, and it's really refreshing. 50 years into my life, and here's a brand new way to look at things, and I didn't even know about it. And so now I'm rejuvenated even more. And so I would love to help other people get to that point.
That's outstanding.
Yeah.
You responded really strongly to Dr. Tanya Crabb. Tell me about, what you remember about her and why she was an important guest speaker for you.
Is that about the characters?
Superhero. Yeah, she was superhero studies as a
And
psychologist.
so a friend of mine, we've been doing life groups for our church for 8 years. So on Sunday nights, we host life groups at my house. And so you can already tell I try to mentor people and stuff outside of Parkinson. And he and I, um, we are kind of the odd couple. He's a stylish, tall black man, and I'm a big, round, white guy. And yet we walk around like we're the best buddies in the whole wide world. And he calls us the Avengers. And so whenever he calls me, he says, Avengers assemble. And so he's a big nerd. But I'm kind of a nerd too. But it's just that we're able to mesh on that. And so he is like a super Marvel fan, and I'm more of a on the surface, I don't know all the details about everything, but I've read comics over my life. And so I had a good basis for when she came in and presented in that manner. And you've always, growing up from the time you're 5 years old to even trying to be, my dad can beat up your dad, and all the way up until, you want to be the best performer at any competition you do. It doesn't matter what it is. You just want to have a good result. And so you kind of apply these mythical powers to yourself.
Right.
And when she started presenting that and really getting into that, and it's like, well, you really can kind of apply this to real life, and it's not just make believe. And yeah, you're using these storylines and characters, but then you delve into their flaws and everything else, and it's not just a surface story. So there's a lot more depth to it. And in fact, since her presentation, I read uh, a history of Marvel, uh, a book about from the time Stan Lee started all the way uh, through their modern movie empire. And I started reading into the creators and what they put into their character. And so once again, it gave me another level to really see how someone else created something. So it's a lot more insight.
Well, and it sounds like her passion for this, and here she is coming in as a doctor, as a psychologist, and using this. And I want to make sure you picked up that she was a Marine as well, so you have the fellow
Yep.
military background, the
Right.
two of you, and you know that she uses this particularly for vets in a rehabilitative sense to reframe their position as a hero. You know, and she went through her trauma in the military, and it's still a big part of her research, and a lot of vets do. Parkinson's is a traumatizing type of thing as well. Does that, you know, I know that word hero, you said felt a little silly to you off the top, but it sounds like you've embraced more of it and seen more of the possibility of seeing yourself as a hero in your own journey. Does that sit better with you now, having gone through the program?
Yeah. Especially at the end when we kind of created our own superhero, and I made Sir Mountain and gave myself the characteristics that I actually have.
Tell me
And
about Sir Mountain.
all right, so Sir Mountain is oh, I wish I had it in front of me, but it's he's a character. He's, you know, all red, white, and blue, all about I do now. I have my baton and everything here, but he he's named Sir Mountain because he helps other people surmount their difficulties. And he's all about helping people overcome difficulties and helping them through rough times. And his sidekick is High Five, which I always keep. And so the reason why I have High Five is sometimes when I travel by myself, I don't have someone to encourage me. So I give myself a high five. So, and I try to do that for other people too, when they don't understand something that they did as a period of growth and they don't give themselves credit for it. I try to give them a high five and say, look what you just did, you know, look where you've come from and all this. Because to them, it's like if you're losing weight and you stare at yourself in the mirror every day, you may not see the progress. But if you take a snapshot 6 months apart and you're like, whoa, look where I was 6 months ago and look now. And so I try to make people realize that. And so everything I learned in this program just feeds into that.
That's
And
awesome.
so I could become Sir Mountain.
Sir Mountain, indeed. So the next person we had, and it said like you respond to as well, was Derek Flores from Zappos Adaptive. Was that a different look at, you know, Parkinson's support than you had before, and if so, how?
Well, I never really I'm not to the point where I have a lot of difficulties dressing myself or things of that nature. And so I never really looked into those products. But as soon as he presented them, and I'm like, I'm glad someone's thinking about this.
Yeah.
And but it's not just that. I have a 90-year-old father-in-law that he's lived with a stroke since his late 20s, and now he's 90, and so he can't button himself anymore. And he's already done it with one hand his whole life, and now he's getting weak all over. And I'm like, we can use these for him. So it's not just for Parkinson's, it's good products for a lot of things. And then so it's something that it's another tool that I could use to steer people towards and say, look, here's something that can make life easier for you.
You know, I want to reflect on something you just said, because I think it's really important. You know, sometimes we think about Parkinson's in a bubble, and I think that's very limiting, both to the people with it and to our opportunity. That if you recognize it as a challenge on a journey, you recognize Michael J. Fox has said this before, right? If everybody put their hammers in right into the fire and said, only take out the ones that you want to take, and you see everybody else's stuff, he said, I'd take my own. We
Right.
recognize that Parkinson's is one thing, and that maybe, you as a person who's already giving and already supporting, you can become empowered to say, well, I can help people over here, help people doing that. It's about becoming that bigger self, right?
Right.
Taking on the challenge that way.
Exactly. And I always look for whatever tools are available, and I kind of sift out the ones that are difficult to use, and I try to get the ones that have the most impact for the least amount of effort, because that's what people buy into the American conscience. It's like the microwave mentality. Let's nuke this up. And so I try to sift through and say, okay, this is the biggest bang for the buck. Let's adopt this and have this available to throw out to people, no matter what's going on,
That's
So
fantastic.
I like to build my arsenal and
Yeah,
just have it ready.
I hear that. I bring up another one here who you thought was interesting, and again, out of the box thinking, beatboxing. Mark
Oh
Martin
yeah,
comes in. What had you ever beatboxed before, and what was that like?
just like a joke, because whenever we're driving along and people say, "Man, I'm tired of this. Let's go have fun," and I go, and so, or I say, "Hey man, let's go to the club," just be so, stuff like that. And so I do it as part of a joke, but I never really saw it as therapeutic and uh, allowing yourself to. What the thing I found most intriguing is when someone said, "I don't have rhythm and I can't make those sounds." He said, "Who told you that?" He's like, "When you were a kid, you didn't know you couldn't make those sounds until someone said, use your inside voice." And so I have always, even when I meet someone that's 70 years old, to this day, I say, "What do you want to be when you grow up?"
Yeah.
Because that automatically brings them back to childhood when they wish they could be this or that or the other. And it just opens up a whole thing that they've repressed in their mind in one sentence. So I invite you to do the same. No matter who you come across, if you don't have anything to, as an icebreaker, say, "Hey, what do you want to be when you grow up?" It works perfectly. And it's the same thing when you hear that, the rhythms and the sounds and everything else. And then he said, you can allow yourself to make this. Don't tell yourself you can't. And you brought back to the childhood before someone told you you can't do something. So that's what I found intriguing about.
That's great. It brings up a couple things I hear in there, which is, childish versus childlike. People
Right.
pejoratively speak of childish. However, childlike is a very attractive quality, that wonder,
Right.
that openness, like you say. And the other is the theory that I think runs through all of this, which is play, right? The
Yes.
actual spirit of play. You seem to have some of that inherently. It sounds like you'd say yay or nay, and this program stoked even more of that for you. It opened up some other play opportunities. Is that fair?
Yes. And it showed me how to help others play.
Yeah.
And so to me, that's very important, because I don't want to be the only one having fun. I want to bring people with me. So it gave me a lot more tools, and now I can, everyone you meet is different, and everyone else, they all have their own hangups. They all have their, so the more tools you have, the more you can lure them out of there. Even my doctor, who's just, he has an interesting bedside banner. He's very stoic and straightforward and everything. I get him to laugh. So it's like, I'll have something in my arsenal for no matter who I meet to kind of bring them out of that. This is my face to the world. No, it's not. No, it's not.
Let me help you surmount that.
That's right. Exactly.
So
So
we go through 12 stages, 12 meetings. We finished the hero's journey. What was your feeling completing that?
actually, I don't feel I'm complete yet because I'm still reflecting. And because I've been so busy in the moment, yes, I finished the assignments as best I could during the time, but there were some weeks where it was rushed and I really couldn't get it. So I'm reflecting on those weeks where I had to speed through. And the person I told you, my cohort, um, my Avenger buddy, I printed out what we did in class, and I gave it to him, and I said, I want you to read through this, and I want to have a discussion with you. So I gave him all 12 weeks. I gave him the surmounting worksheet and plus the follow-up questions that you had. And I said, I want you to take your time. I don't care if it takes you a week to read through all this or a month or whatever. I want you to delve into it. And then I want you to ask me questions. And so I'm not done with the program. I'm still moving forward.
That's wonderful. Well, as we, say the hero's journey, it's a circle and you get to the front and, you start again and you
Right.
find out sometimes you're on multiple, using the, kind of, the multiverse type thing. You're on multiple journeys in different spheres at once. And, you said in response to me asking about how this applies to your Parkinson's, you said the person I am now is completely different than who I was prior to the diagnosis. Talk about that, because what I don't see often enough and what I hope comes out of this program is a growth mentality. You seem like you have a very large growth mentality and hope and inspiration toward the life that you're living right now.
Right. So when I was a kid, I did a lot of things, and I could go into them all, but you don't have the time. But just in short, I always wanted to learn things. I was always a reader. I was a Boy Scout, Eagle Scout. I want to get all the merit badges, but I didn't. And but I just wanted to explore each and everything. And so as a kid and as a teenager, I'd try this job, I'd do this job. Sometimes I have 3 jobs at once, but I'd never make it to where it was overwhelming. And I always had, it was like flipping channels. It's like, all right, I'm doing this right now. And then I'd go to another job for an hour and a half and say, all right, I'm doing this. It's a totally different interaction. You're working with totally different people. So it was never overbearing. I felt like I was free all the time. I was making enough money where I could have my own car and travel where, I earned the, I was responsible enough for my parents to trust because they saw that, the jobs I had, the interactions I had with people, the, feedback from my bosses. And so they gave me that freedom. And so at that time in my life, I didn't feel like I knew it all. In fact, I still felt like I had a lot to learn. I had a different perspective than most. And so I had a total freedom. And then I went into the military and they beat all that out of you. And so they put you and shoehorn you into this person, and you act this way, you interact this way, you answer this way, you eat this way, you do all this way. And so it was another challenge, and I saw it as another journey. And I did that for 4 years. And then I entered adulthood really after that and got jobs and then took on my own. And then I just started being closed down on. And it's like everything that was in my childhood that was exciting and explorative and everything else, it's like it all got stripped away as the years went.
Mm.
And so by the time I got to the ordinary world just before my diagnosis, I was just miserable. I was doing a job I hated, but you mentioned I had golden handcuffs. I made too much money to willingly give it up and move on. And I didn't feel like I could give myself that permission because I was married. And so it wasn't just me I had to worry about. And so I just felt like I was stuck. I had very little joy. I wasn't going to church. I didn't know my neighbors, didn't have very many friends outside of work. And so it's like every bit of joy that I had as a child was gone. And even though I was married to a wonderful person and I had all these resources to go have a vacation and drive a decent car and all that, it wasn't joy. It was just stuff. And so once I got hit with Parkinson's, it was like, okay, now I don't even have what I hate. What am I going to do? And so I was so clueless as to what I was going to do. And then once I went to that one event in Washington, D.C., and I saw these people just serving others, finding ways to help their local community, it was like everything that I had because, you know, Boy Scouts do one good turn daily. So I always serve people back then. And it's like everything that was wonderful about my childhood became a possibility again. And I was able to recapture everything that was wonderful about life prior to being in that rut. And so now I can give myself permission to do all those wonderful things and help others do the same thing. And they don't have to have Parkinson's for me to help. You know, I can help people who have absolutely nothing wrong with them except they're miserable, and I can help them. You know,
that can be a significant thing to have something wrong with you, because you were that example, right? You were the guy with stuff. You could go on a nice vacation. External appearances might be like, hey, this guy's got to figure it out. But internally, you were tore up.
oh, and I treated people bad because I was so miserable. I took it out on others. And, you know, I wasn't raised that way, and I wasn't like that growing up. And it's just that I was so miserable, you know, I couldn't take it out. You know, you're not allowed to release that. You know, you're told to kind of bottle it in. And if you yell, scream, or punch the wall or something, it's like, something's wrong with you. You need to tone it down, you know. And it's like, you have no way to release all this stuff. And so when it does get released, someone gets hurt emotionally. You say something you regret, and it's because it's like a volcano that's bubbling,
right?
These little the pressure builds, and then boom, someone gets burned, you know. And so I wasn't miserable. I was miserable because of what I was doing to others,
right,
and how I was treated. And so now I try to tell people that I was a mean person, and they don't believe. It's like people in my life group, I say, you wouldn't believe the kind of person I was 12 years ago. And they say, I just can't see it. It's like, because that's not who I was.
and you're
that
like,
was
good.
Yeah. And so they see who I really am now, and they just can't picture me being that person that just blurted on people, you know, like a volcano.
All right, BJ, last thing, you've done a great job. Thank you so much for all this. I appreciate hearing that you're chomping at the bit to be a mentor. That is a future possibility and opportunity. This program is far from done, as you know. One of the things that's out there in the Parkinson's community, all the major websites have it. They say, tell us your story. Do you feel better served to be able to tell your story in a more effective and effective way after having gone through this program?
Oh, absolutely. Because there were periods during my journey that I didn't think were key or had any major pivot point or effect on where I was headed. And now when you look, I don't want to say the minutia, but when you really delve into, okay, I was here, how did I get here? And you say, well, this little thing happened in the middle. It's like you tune into those types of things. And whereas before it's like, okay, I was here and I'm here, so what? But now you start to learn how I got from here to here. And so you can make it understandable for someone else about you know, not everyone wants to know how a car engine works, but the more knowledge you have and everything else, you can get an engineer to go through all the technical jargon and everything else. But the more knowledgeable you are, the easier it is to make it someone else visualize it in easier terms.
Right.
And so one of the things I pride myself on, which I hate to use the word pride at all, but I feel like I can talk to anybody and make things understandable to them at whatever level they're at. And even if it takes a little bit more time, I can get them understanding where I'm coming from, because I've learned so many different ways of expressing it now that from whatever perspective they're at, I can give them something that I've experienced and help them visualize it. Right. Whether they're just someone newly diagnosed, someone who doesn't have Parkinson's, someone who's a nurse, practitioner, doctor, CEO, it doesn't matter. I feel like I can talk to anybody at any level. And it's things like this that help you learn all those little things in between that could be used to help them transition.
Right.
You know, I could tell somebody, okay, I did this and did this. Well, how'd you get there? I don't know.
Yeah.
Right. But now it's like, okay, I realize now that at this point I had this choice and I weighed the pros and cons and said, this is where I want to go. And I can visualize that and present it to somebody and say, well, this is how I got from here to here.
Right.
So it just helps someone else maybe think about, okay, where am I and where do I want to go and how do I get there? It gives them a vehicle instead of just, okay, here's a poster and put it on the wall. That's where you want to be. How do I get there? I don't know. Call
Yeah.
a ticket agent, whatever.
I love that you see it in practical terms, both within the day one PD superheroes and then ongoing with these improvisation jam for joys and otherwise that we do, that it's not a one-stop shop. It's like you said, you're not done with your journey and you can
Right.
continue to play and have fun
That's
through
right.
these things and meet people that seem to inspire you too. I mean, the community that you all built.
But now I can play with a purpose and get away with it for a reason instead of just being silly.
Yes, and it's both.
Right.
It's somewhere to put that skill set, and trust me, I get that from a lifelong of similar types of things. I think we're evenly met in that regard. BJ, I can't thank you enough for your time. You know, I'm sure I'll be seeing you at the Jam for Joy. I will definitely be seeing you at the Axe Effort in December, and then even before then in October, right?
That's right. In DC
Goodness.
for the all in. We'll go all in.
That wow, we got some upcoming meetings, my friend. I'm very very thankful to have met you, and thank you for all your great reflections on all of this.
Welcome. And if I could be of any service, you know it.
I do know it. You're awesome. Take care, buddy.
Bye.